humans are the only beings on earth who are surprising because they get to add chemicals on the food which they are growing in order to kill other organisms so they don't eat them, and then they get to eat the food themselves. Hello, Samson here. What if I told you that you could grow 4 times more food in a quarter than you're doing right now without using a lot of water? So that's using less water, using less fertilizers, no chemicals, and actually building your soil and not depleting it. We're back with John Jeavons' How to Grow More Vegetables. We did a review, I think, one of the weeks where we're talking about a sustainable garden, that is by John Jeavons. So today's focus is on how you can be able to grow more food using a smaller space, actually 4 times more food than you could in a quarter. So diving right into it, what the book solves is Jeavons actually starts with an observed fact. So he says that the current practices of agriculture that we have actually destroying about 6 kilograms of the soil for every kilogram of food that we get to produce. And then worldwide, we're only about 42 to 84 years worth of topsoil that is remaining. And if you come to look at it, these numbers are actually not so big that we are going to have it sustainable to last us longer in the long run. So it takes up a lot more time for nature to actually be able to rebuild the soil itself, even after we have depleted everything that we have gotten from the soil, after we've distorted the whole system for the soil that is working around us. And conventional farming itself, inclusive of organic farming, by the way, he says that we deplete about 17 times. That is from an agricultural or organic growing standpoint. 17 times of the soil, it gets to be depleted every time because maybe we're not putting back what has to be put back in the soil. Then when we harvest food, we are not doing justice to the soil because we're not putting back in the soil what is supposed to be put in there. So the radical question now that comes in is, what if we could grow a lot more food, including fertilizing our soil at the same time, and then be able to produce a lot and fertilize the soil? Well, the grow biointensive method is the one that he is employing in the book, which is actually a principle that I have studied and seen that is working. So growing biointensive actually is a rediscovery of the growing techniques which were used like 4,000 years back in China. Some of them have continued to be used even up to now. The Greeks used the similar techniques 2,000 years back as well. So these techniques actually are dealing with the fact that we do not need to deplete from the soil. If we are to get a lot of production from the soil, we need to be able to feed the soil itself. Principles which I employed, I could only point out to maybe about 5 of them. So the first one is deep soil preparation. So where you're able to double dig your beds and then loosen the soil properly up to about 60 centimeters deep of the soil is supposed to be loosened enough so that there is enough aeration, and we've been talking about this for the longest now. Principles of composting, which is the second one that he talks about, that there is no need for us to use chemicals in order to kill other living organisms living in our ecosystem. Someone said that humans are the only beings on earth who are surprising because they get to add chemicals on the food which they are growing in order to kill other organisms so they don't eat them, and then they get to eat the food themselves. The principle of close planting together, because you want to utilize up a lot of space, but not forgetting that plants should not be able to overshadow each other in order for you to grow quality. Companion planting, we've talked about growing guilds in plants where there is companion growing of, let's say, maize, beans, and there is things like chihuahua. The carbon efficient crops and the calorie efficient crops, which you're going to dive right next to when you're talking about the 60-30-10 model and sustainability. So what he employs and suggests is that 60% of whatever you are growing in your garden should be carbon and calorie crops. And then about 30% should be high calorie crops and roots. Then 10% should be vegetables. Now, depending on the system of growing and the purpose of whatever you're growing, this should be able to give you a glimpse of what it is that you need. So why is he employing this model of sustainability? So the math is very simple in that if you grow all your own food using the method, is that you can actually produce a complete vegetarian diet on actually a very small piece of land. Not all of us are vegetarians. We'll get to discuss maybe some of these other things when we're dealing with integrated organic agriculture. But the data from Biosphere 2 project that they have been dealing in so much actually suggests that they've been able to raise about 80% of their own food in such a closed system. The key techniques include double digging, composting as alluded to earlier, seed propagation, and then there is also master charts that you're going to find, which are going to tell you about what you need to grow when. So depending on your climatic conditions in the regions where you're growing your things from, Zambia is mostly my target audience. So we are looking at the seasons that we need to be able to grow if you're on irrigation and things like those. And moving right to beyond vegetables, you can do grains, fruits, and more, just in a small portion. Learning from nature and how nature itself is able to provide for itself. The principles are simply standing out. And in conclusion, what I got from the book is we need to be able to stop growing crops alone, but we need to grow soil. So we cannot grow soil minus growing crops. So it's an interconnected system that is there. And rather than growing crops for the sole purpose of consumption, the goal now changes to just getting life from the soil, but actually giving and creating life. So this was John Jeavons' How to Grow More Vegetables. For more insights, you should read the book till we meet in the next segment I am checking out.